and there's nobody to really show them. I'm back to the lack of the leadership vacuum, um, regionally, certainly in Ontario, and nationally. I'll give you a few really practical examples of what I've seen in organizations that I've worked with. In Oshawa, when I arrived, some months after I arrived here from Ottawa, um, I noticed that pretty much every team was doing a regroup drill, just like Mike was describing. Pass it to the two defensemen at the far blue line, get the puck back, attack two other defensemen, break out, blah, blah, blah. The 9-year-olds were doing it, the 14-year-olds were doing it, the 16-year-olds were doing it. Tier 1 was doing it, AAA. Tier 4 was doing it. Everybody was doing it. And when I'd ask the coaches, why are you doing that? Well, we have to be able to regroup. Oh, okay. Then they would do breakout drills. Well, why are you doing breakout drills? Well, we have to get out of our own zone. Then the question becomes, well, how does a breakout start? Well, you take the puck behind the net, and that's no. Starts from regaining possession of the puck. So how are you going to incorporate that? With the Whitby Girls Association the last couple of years, I asked the coaches, can your girls turn to the right? And they went, wow, no, they have a lot of trouble with it. Well, what are you doing to correct that? I don't know. What do you suggest? How about when they get on the ice, you have them go clockwise instead of counterclockwise? They started doing that. Now the girls can turn better to the right. Coaches, well, are you giving the kids any time to play with the pucks by themselves? Should we do that? Don't you want to play with the puck? Don't you want them to become more comfortable with the puck? So every coach, I didn't mandate it. I just said, put it in the form of a question. If you want the kids to be better with a puck, they got to play with a puck. So now the coaches were all starting their practices for up to 10 minutes playing with pucks. But then they have to take it to the next level. Is it just playing with pucks, or are they going to actually flip the puck into a bucket, flip the puck to the glass? Can you flip the puck over the net? Can you flip the puck to a partner who knocks it down? Like, as Mike was suggesting, all kinds of ways to play something very simply, and then adding rules to it to improve their technique, right? By trying it. You don't try, you don't get. So I've always been convinced, and I'm convinced even more so now, that coaches want to learn. They want to get better. We need to provide them those opportunities. As everybody was talking here before, and I'm sniffing my nose to see if she's dumped yet, but I got an email from the president of the association out here in Oshawa saying we want to go ahead with your presentation before tryouts in April. We just got to find the right day, because they recognize that let's provide coaches some extra tools. That's our roles are so important, whether we're 60 years old or 92 years old. Our roles as experienced educators and coaches is vital. We are the heartbeats of the program. I cannot stress enough how important we are, and that it's time for the governing bodies to recognize it. And I will now deal with the baby. Excuse me.
I just wanted to make reference to these adaptations at practice, the nuances, the details that I've witnessed addendum with Tom's team and with Wes's team this year, 2U13 team. Tom is, the girls are learning to pass the puck, make decisions. And when you're talking regroups, in last night's scrimmage, Tom, they were regrouping. I saw one double D to D. I saw a D to D and up. I didn't see an evasive tight turn. It wasn't required. But I saw the work they'd done on passing happen in a scrimmage where two teams were mixed, whites against black, whole ice scrimmaging. That's the measurement of what you're doing working. So the amount to which the coach understands that is sort of the art of what I think Richard is mastering, trying to get things across, not for us, but for the coaches out there who, like he said, they want to get better. They really do. And the thing I struggle with is being more comfortable and helping them get better. And Richard, I think you've done more of it than I have, working with an association that you literally grew up in, coached through, and the comfort zone of them appreciating what you're doing and coming to you and maybe asking you at times for ideas. That's when you know your time is worthwhile. So, Richard, can you talk about sort of the successes of what you've done and those kind of moments where you think they're really getting it? You mentioned
That won't take long.
the practice you ran. So, Rick, in Strathmore, you mentioned the practice, the U18, and how well it went over. But you got permission to run a practice, and it was appreciated. So you now have acceptance within the organization, that group of people anyway. So you seem to be making mentorship headway, which is what we're trying to do, is make headway so that this is going to help more coaches, therefore more players and parents down the road. Rich, can you speak to that?
Rich or Rick?
Rick, I'm sorry, Rick Puttock. Yeah.
I wasn't sure, Wally.
Yeah,
Certainly within this one group, I have a greater level of acceptance of my involvement than with some of the other groups. But this is my third year doing this with this particular organization, and each year has been an incremental step, although a very short step. Let's put it that way. One of the things that I see that isn't working here is, and it goes back to what Richard's talking about, is coaches don't know. And if he's going to get in for a preseason introduction to the group that he mentioned on his last talk here, I think that's where it has to start. When I've gotten involved, they were already a month or a month and a half into their season. They've already done enough things that are going to have to be undone in a lot of cases, and then you get that reluctance to make that change. So the idea of having mentorship in particular for new coaches and outline all of the things that they should look forward to and be aware of and be prepared for is, in my opinion, quite critical. Trying to come in afterwards and trying to right the ship, so to speak, is a very difficult proposition.
Richard, in that regard, and I'm speaking of mentorship of AAA and AA competitive teams, I don't even look at X's and O's. I don't even look at practices. I look at the game and behavior, discipline, effort, respect, learning, getting better, improvement. And I believe that teams that are not successful beat themselves because of their behaviors, their bad habits. And I'm not talking technical bad habits, I'm talking behavioral habits. Reaction penalties, staying out too long, beating an official, and the coach is not picking up on it and addressing it. And I think that's more obvious than the nuances of X's and O's that we are experts in. So I'm dedicating my time now to, and Tim has brought up the idea of every association having an ethical director. And I think we have a better opportunity for success because the problems at competitive levels, and they'll curve too soon. The score clock is the only thing they think about. In fact, the only thing the coaches sort of think about versus the things they're doing to lead to a better result. But behaviorally, that's what I've come to grips with, not worrying as much about that and enjoying the quality of coaching that I see going on in terms of how the players behave and how they're treated, and boy, they're having fun. But
I've had the impression that in working with various organizations here and also in Ottawa, that if I provide coaches the right tools and point them in the right direction to the kinds of things they should be or shouldn't be doing, per the example of doing breakouts and regroups with 9-year-olds, then they're more likely to come to you after the fact and say, listen, I want to teach my kids how to do a 2-on-1. What do you suggest? I want to teach my kids how to forecheck. What do you suggest? We've had it backwards for eons. I don't want to tell you how to forecheck. I don't want to tell you how to do a 2-on-1 or a breakout. Why don't you look at the way of what you know about how the game should be taught? What are the roles of the game? What are the principles of the game? How are you packaging this? Then we can address, if you want, the kinds of tactics or skills that you think the kids should have. And I found that coaches are open to that. They want that. I've had a lot of coaches say, boy, you really opened my eyes to different approaches. I'm taking a much different approach now, and the kids are responding better. The problem has been the organizations, like the local organizations, don't have people on their boards who are willing to stand up and say, that Kozak guy or that Bothwell guy, let's bring him in because we really believe in the messaging and the approach our coaches need to take. But because the people on the boards themselves have virtually no background technically, the strong technical people are not on the boards. They're on the ice like us. They don't know what they don't know either. And if they're looking to the governing bodies to provide them that guidance, they're not getting it. Because for years I heard coaches in Montreal and Ottawa say, well, what does Hockey Canada say about doing this? What does Hockey Quebec say about doing this? What do the governing bodies, what do the people in those aren't the people who are providing the information. That's a real issue.
And Richard, I'm going to ask Michael, is Hockey USA doing a better job than Hockey Canada at providing some guidance and direction?
So I think so. I mean, I think what they've done with their modeling is the information's out there, the education's out there, the form. I mean, you literally, if you're a new coach and you had a question about where to start and what the process is and kind of what the pathway would be, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it gives you a step-by-step guide on what you can do. Now, to Richard's point, it now is going to take the leap of, do you have people willing to do that and fight the naysayers that say, well, that's not us, or we need to do this, or I did it this way. Like the guy, that's like the worst comment in the world, right? So that's I did it this way. Like, yeah, I realize that, and I've seen you skate. So I don't think that you might not be the best example, but I think, 90% of your kids quit every year. So I think I think they do have a great job. I think what we failed at the USA Hockey level is the messaging, that the programming that they're showing the organizations that the coaches to use is not a fun model, although there's a lot of fun in there. It's a high performance model that if you wanted to produce the best player that you could produce, you would follow this model. And I think what gets lost is, like with cross ice and blue pucks and small area games, is that's more of a fun model. That's not a high performance model, which in fact is wrong. Just I don't think they haven't done a great job of messaging that, in my opinion. But that's where I get most of my business from. So that's okay. Most of the programs I work with, I'm working with about 7 different organizations right now, and they literally are cookie cutter organizations. They're all the same. They have a board that is way above, way over their skis on decision making because they don't know. They're not in the, they're not in the they're not in the battle. They've never been in the battle. They don't understand the long-term athletic development process. And to everyone, we've had these conversations a million times here. They never stay in it long enough to make the influence, even the ones that do understand it. They're only there for 2-3 years. And they just never get to complete the cycle. And most people that I work with, they're bitter, they get burnt out, and they quit. So the great people you get, they try it, they fight. By the time they make a little bit of headway, their kid graduates out and ages out, they move out, and they move on. And then the next person comes in that, feels they can do it a different way as well. I do think if I'm a part of a governing body, I would hope that the governing body would have more teeth. I guess, if they're like USA Hockey gives a lot of money out to the organizations. I mean, they bring in a lot of money, but they spend a lot of money. And my point has always been, well, then spend it on the programs that want to follow the guide that you're given, not the maverick programs that don't follow any of what you're doing, because they shouldn't benefit then from the financial windfall that we have, that you couldn't have here. Like here we have what's called model programs. So a program that follows a specific age appropriate guideline for each age group. USA Hockey goes out and makes them a model program. That's, no leaving on Wednesdays for tournaments, more practices and games, age appropriate and age level developer, like coordinator. So you have an 8U coordinator, 10U coordinator like this. And even when I hire and restructure programs, I tend not to hire a hockey director as much as I hire individual level coordinators. They're just more impactful. They're right in it. Everything they do is for that level. And they don't have to, they don't have to get clouded by the bigger picture of, every single level having the same problem. But I guess to answer your question, I do think we do a better job than Hockey Canada.
Okay.